Yellow. I'm behind
Hi. Oh my gosh, you just like your skin just changed rapidly. It was very disturbing.
you. I'm sure it does that a lot. It's a condition.
Okay. We better start getting some wood before
Wait, we gotta talk about what we're doing. What are you doing? You're
oh
so
yeah, you're right.
distracted by the Minecraft.
No,
Put
yeah,
that
look,
back. No, that's
pedestal.
not where that goes. Put that back. Goddamn. Can't do anything with you. I swear. Jesus Christ. Anyways, um, so we are Ninjelis and Emytha. Hello.
I'm
And I'm
ninjealous.
Emytha. Um, we are married. Lovely, non-combative couple, of course. And we decided that we like to play games. We like to play Minecraft, and we also like to talk about a lot of topics that some people would consider controversial. And we just consider, just important things that need to be discussed. So we figured we would talk about them, and record it, and put it on the internet, as that's what everybody does these days.
And it's just
I mean,
interesting.
that's
So
fair, because hopefully it'll
it's
spark some discussion between people. We definitely would like to hear what other people have to say about things, because obviously what we think is not going to be what everybody else thinks. Motherfucker, I swear. All right.
yeah. So this is gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
So I kind of thought that we could start off with something that we've talked about a little bit before.
Probably a light topic. Start off on an easy one.
About as light as cancer.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not cancer.
It's
It's
not
not surprising.
cancer.
Yeah. So I, in light of a lot of this like Texas legislation and everything about
Hashtag fuck
abortion, and
Texas,
then
but
just
yeah, continue.
yeah, and the fact that Texas does the death penalty has kind of got me thinking back on something we talked about before, which is just I personally feel like the death penalty and abortion are essentially the same exact thing.
Okay. Elaborate.
So, and okay, yeah, no, I'll happily do that. So, yeah, so abortion, without saying like that it's right or wrong, we won't get into that just yet. But the it is essentially just state sanctioned like murder, right? But so is
Oh,
abortion.
you said
Sorry,
I was
yeah,
like,
the death
abortion is
penalty.
state the sanctioned? Holy shit. In
Well,
Texas? Wow.
if it's legal, then it is essentially like ending the life of like a human life that would otherwise grow into a functional person. If it weren't terminated or whatever terminology you want to use there,
Hmm.
but with no reason to believe that it will not grow into like a functional person, then so that's more or less what that is. And if it's legal, then it's state sanctioned. So I feel like that fits the bill for state sanctioned
Hmm.
murder.
Murder.
And once again, I know this is like really harsh kind of verbiage there, but not saying that it's right or wrong necessarily, but it kind of falls in line, I feel like, with these terms where you're ending a human
Hmm.
life, but it's allowed more or less.
Hmm.
And then so the death penalty more or less is the same thing also. Like you're ending a human life that doesn't necessarily have to be ended per se, and it's okay
Right.
by the law, right? So state sanctioned murder is kind of how I'm seeing these two
Hmm.
things, the parallel between them.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously some very distinct differences. Um, some would say that, like someone who's on death row is, clearly on death row for a reason, for something that they had the choice to do. And then I suppose if you were, to have an abortion, then that's not necessarily something that the child did. So if you are in the realm of trying to compare the two and say that the two are the same, I'll just go ahead and say that I am definitely pro-choice. I think that you should have the choice, so, the child didn't do anything wrong, like, well, sorry, kid, it's just not your time. That's my opinion. Listen,
Right.
if for the people that say, like, God did everything for a reason, then, like, maybe God had someone get pregnant and wanted them to abort that child to put them through some kind of test, Like, God does everything for a fucking reason. So don't hit me with that shit, Karen. Anyways, but in the
Oh, good.
specific argument of they're the same thing, that the death penalty and abortion is the same thing, I would disagree because, again, someone made active choices in one and not active choices in the other. Well, So,
Right. So like death penalty being like
where'd you
a
go?
I have not left
You're
the
just
starting
actually
area.
standing still.
Yeah, no,
Left or
not
something.
quite. I'm chopping down
Oh,
trees,
okay.
getting getting my working my wood.
Okay.
Anyway,
Continue.
the so yeah, so no, I see what you're saying as far as like death penalty is like a punishment for something that someone chose to do, like they forfeited their
Mm-hmm.
life, and then like the child, the baby
Mm-hmm.
embryo has not done anything necessarily to deserve
Mm-hmm.
dying
I
or
guess you
being
could say that their little
unlived.
sperm swam super fast, so they did make that choice. So it's kind of on them at that point. So like next time, I'm trying to tell my mom, or like if we have kids, and then they're like, "I didn't choose to be born." I'm like, "Bitch, you swam the fastest. You chose this. You
You
fucking
you
did
wanted
it."
it.
That's my new argument.
You you
You
did
did this.
this.
You made the choice to swim fast, you little shit.
So I think that that's an interesting perspective to take on that, right? So like the morality side of things, like you did something to deserve death, and so that's why you're going to die, and then you did not do something to deserve death, so you're still going to
Mhm.
die. So that's an interesting perspective on that. But I think that if you talk about morality, right, then you sort of have to look at it in like a more holistic kind of view. So, does the person that we're killing in the death penalty, does that serve, like, does that help society at all? Like, and I would say no, because the death penalty, and I'll get around to kind of why that's important with the abortion here in just a second, but the death penalty costs a ton of money. The execution itself is not all that terribly expensive, but the appeals process, right, is hugely expensive, and it needs to be because we're going to be ending the life of a person, and so they should have every opportunity to prove their innocence
Well,
if they
like
are
what all
innocent.
goes into that cost, I suppose.
It's all court system stuff. So like there's the actual chemicals and everything that you use for like lethal injection, which is something like $6,000 roughly, right? And then there's the death penalty, trials and retrials, and all of that overall ends up costing something like $1.12 million
Ugh.
more to do that whole thing than just convicting a life sentence and letting a person die in prison, of life. So we're spending a lot more money in a much shorter period of time to, let someone go through all these extra trials and everything, than it would cost just to let them live and, rot in
Mhm.
prison, like, and not pursue death. It's going to cost us a lot less. But on top of that, by just ending the person's life, we also take away any chance that they give anything back to society. Say like with a prison work program or something, like if they're able to work while in prison or jail or
I guess,
what
what are
the situation.
they doing in that job that contributes to society? So I will say my mindset right now is very. I've been listening to this true crime podcast called Morbid. It's really great. You should check it out if you like true crime. But so my brain is very much on like the really intense hardcore sociopaths and like serial killers that are in the prison system, or and so I guess there's obviously people that do much less terrible things. So okay, that was where my brain was, and I've talked myself out of it. So
No, of course. Like, so there's always the opportunity, like while they're in prison, that they're going to, provide labor or something along those lines. Like manual labor, at the very least, is something that they can do while in prison that adds some sort of value back into society, right? Without giving them like their freedom back or whatever the case is with that. Also, I don't have
I
a
don't
bed,
either.
so there's no.
I'm also
Okay,
in a deep
good deal.
dark cave, so fucked up.
Yeah, I am not. So I'm gonna work on getting in a deep dark cave. But yeah, so there's this opportunity for someone who is not like so mentally disturbed that they can't function. That feels like an entirely separate topic almost. But if they are to that point, that's a little different. They probably aren't in prison. They may not go to death row in some certain cases. They may be put into like an insane asylum depending on the situation. But like I was saying, that's different. So, but these other people who have committed just these horrible violent crimes, they could at the very least potentially provide manual labor, which
but like what manual labor? Like where is that contributing?
Well, anything that they create, in prison, under the guidance of the prison system would be, potentially sold by the prison to fund, I don't know, schools. Like you could take your pick at that point. It could all go to donations. Okay. But that's more or less free labor that you get. Yeah. So, and that's something that, and I mean, not to say that they deserve it, but they could even potentially, you could incentivize the prisoners by giving them like a small wage earnings to spend on, something in the prison. Who knows? But my point though is that if you kill them, you spend all that money to kill them.
I guess too, and this does go a little bit back onto where my thought process was. So I suppose it's not off, but like if you're being given the death penalty, you probably did some bad shit. Like, I wouldn't say probably. I'm like, you did some bad shit. So at that point, it's just like, okay, like if they contribute to society, they could contribute by just getting the fuck out of society and being dead. And that's probably going to give like someone some like comfort of like, if you brutally murdered my child, maybe it's going to make me feel better. And then that's a contribution to society right there.
The thing about that though is that the death penalty has not actually proven to be like a good form of what's it called? It's not a good deterrent, and it's not really a good. It doesn't really help the people that much. Like they still go through the grieving process, and on top of that, because of the length of time that the death penalty takes to actually take effect, because of the court system, any grieving that they may do may already be done potentially by this point. So it's not exactly extremely useful there, and there's really not a lot of evidence to say that it actually helps the people involved. But just to say, let's say that is the point though, like that it makes you feel better, right? It makes someone else feel better. Obviously the dead person's not going to feel better, but isn't that also kind of the same thing as the abortion? Like you're taking a person who otherwise could provide something to society,
Ooh,
and you're removing them from existence,
for someone else's
and
benefit.
for
And
someone
that
else's
sounds
benefit.
obviously like very, very heartless the way that I just phrased that. I don't.
Well, we're just keeping things straight up
Yeah.
here. So like for the audience, right? Like I honestly I don't have an opinion with this. My thing is I really wish that um, our legal system would treat like things
Hmm.
the same. So it feels, especially with Texas, right? So this is what really gets me thinking about this is that Texas somehow justifies, death
Hmm.
penalty, but at the same time, like human life is the highest sacred thing, and then at the same time is like a major proponent of the death
Hmm.
penalty. But they condemn
Yeah,
abortion.
and I mean, I
Like,
do think that that's definitely interesting, because I think at that point you would be right. It's like, how can you say that? I mean, and I was kind of talking about this a little bit earlier, but in the podcast that I listened to, Morbid, there was one point, and I was like, it got me thinking a whole lot. Whenever one of the girls, I think it was Elena, she said, talking about someone that was murdered, but said, no one deserves to be murdered. And then I know with them specifically, like the death penalty is a very gray topic for them. So it's just like, because, as you had said, sometimes they can get it wrong and it is just like really expensive and all that stuff.
and it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely
And
happens.
so, but again, there's like sometimes when you just like someone does something that's so terrible and you're just like, man, you don't deserve to be in this world. But then it's like, if you truly think that not everyone deserves to be murdered, then it's like,
Wouldn't you find another
where's
way?
that separation of like the death penalty versus that murder? So it's like, if you do think that, if you do have the difference of, because like I had said, the child doesn't necessarily make a choice, they didn't choose to be conceived, but it's still like someone does kind of, the word benefit is sounds like really shitty, but it's not something that a lot of people do lightly, like get an abortion. So it's like, it's a choice that they feel like they need to make for whatever circumstance that they're in. And so it's just something that they potentially need to do at that time. And, so if you're like, I need to, just as a blanket statement, I need to take this person out of the world because of XYZ reason, if it's an abortion or the death penalty, it's like, is that not a very similar vein?
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty well exactly what I'm saying. Like because the baby doesn't necessarily deserve.
I almost fucked up. It's fine. We're good.
Yeah, so like the baby doesn't necessarily deserve to die per
Hmm.
se, but there's also no morally good, ultimately good reason that the person on death row needs to
Hmm.
die. Like once they're in prison and they're harmless to the people of society, then at that point, killing them is just for our own
Hmm.
satisfaction at that point. Which satisfaction is a really hard term to broach the topic of abortion with. But at the end of the day, we're talking about avoiding going through the pregnancy process, um, and all the complications in life that go with that. Ultimately, just to keep your life easier, or at least at the same level as it is
I mean,
currently.
there's many,
Uh,
many different reasons that people get abortions.
right. And just to be clear, also, I am not talking about medically necessary abortions. Like in the instance of, I'm talking purely
Hmm.
electory abortions. So not in the situation that the baby may die anyway, or that the mother will or may die. Not the topic at all. So like I'm talking strictly about
Hmm.
electory
It's like someone got
abortion.
pregnant and it's like, I just can't do this right
Not prepared
now,
for the
or I
baby.
just don't want to. Like, not everybody wants to have their body fucking destroyed by a creature that maybe they didn't want in there in the first place. Oh,
Right.
motherhood.
Mo- Motherhood. So there's clearly an opinion there. We'll talk about that later. No, no, but that's fair, right? So you may have made obviously you made choices, right? A lot of times, like not talking about rape once again, because like that's clearly a different scenario, like just electory abortions, and you clearly made some choices, made some bad choices, or maybe you just weren't using your birth control correctly, or the birth control potentially even failed.
Or you weren't
Uh,
educated, and
or yeah,
and this is what happens when you're not educated.
yeah, don't be
Okay, so
uneducated. You get
there was
blown
a
up.
creeper directly in front of me, and I was like, fuck, 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 I'm gonna back up. And then there was a behind me, and now I'm dead.
And now Emytha is
Uh,
dead.
well, good thing I didn't really have a
Rip.
whole lot going on, because I have absolutely no fucking clue where I was.
Ooh,
Yeah.
rough. That's really rough. Hey, I wasn't the first one that
Eat
died.
Fuck. Fuck.
It's like a miracle, like the miracle of life.
Birth.
Uh, yeah, so I mean,
It.
where did you leave off there?
Dead. And I know it's like it's a very interesting like way to think in terms of, because I know where you like stand on abortion, which is like I believe pretty pro-choice.
Yeah, I am actually pro-choice. So I think though that it does need to at least, same with the death penalty. I think it at the very least as human beings, we have to give the fetus its humanity, right? And at least not try to dehumanize the baby, because I think that's a dangerous path to go down. To try to deny that we're ending a human life, I think that gives way to a lot of vandals, like delinquents that would kind of take that mindset to another place and use it to justify other actually terrible things. But so I think we have to be really careful about that. And but other than that though, like I am pro-choice as well. Like I think that parents should be able to choose when they bring someone into the world, and I mean actually choose, not like you had sex, you made a choice. That is part of it, and I think a lot of people need to be like really educated and just as far as that goes, and that we're talking about huge system reforms potentially, and just being better parents when we're talking to our kids and stuff and teaching them about these things in life. But
because like another crazy thing about getting like pregnant is like, for the most part, getting pregnant can be really difficult, and then so it's just like these people that potentially aren't educated and don't know. I did find my stuff, by the way, thankfully. But it's like, I mean, you could be doing what you're doing for a long time and like never get pregnant, and again, because there's just such a stigmatism around like talking about sex and talking about like where babies come from and like bullshit, which there shouldn't be. Open communication is extremely important. People need to like be able to talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, people, come on,
fuckers. But I mean, that's where, not all of it. That's not where all of it stems from. But especially like young pregnancies, it's just like, and like I don't know how true this is, but they have said that it was true. But I've seen some like TikToks where there's people that are saying like, "Hey, we've been having trouble getting pregnant, and like we're doing everything that we can," and then they have said that the way that they're attempting to get pregnant is basically like, when the guy's gonna come, he pulls out and comes on her stomach, because you get pregnant through the belly button. And it's just like, like I can't 100% confirm that that's actually a thing that has happened, but I would not doubt it, because like of just how like taboo it is to talk about. Also very much depending on like what your household looks like. I feel like if it's very Christian, then it has the potential of being like, well, we don't talk about that because if you're educated about what sex is, then you're gonna have it, and we don't.
You're gonna,
We don't.
yeah, you're gonna make that
Yeah.
choice kind of thing.
But
Right.
then, if you don't know what sex is, then you're gonna have it, and you're not gonna be prepared for what happens after that.
Yeah, you're not gonna understand the consequences of having sex.
And there's just a lot of stuff like that. So just in terms of, and then there's a huge stigma that comes with the whole. That just comes with being pregnant, and then again, like some people just don't want to have kids, and there's really nothing wrong with that. And I don't know how. I know this was like very true years ago, and I think it's still true. But like getting your tubes tied, or like as a woman, making it to where you can't get pregnant physically is like very difficult. So like if you were like, I never want to have kids, so I just want to go ahead and take that chance out. The way that it used to be, and I can't confirm that this is still how it is, but they were like, well, if you're young, then like we pretty much will refuse to do it. And if you're married, you need to have your husband's like written consent, like written permission for this, and just and shit like that. It's like you just have no autonomy over your body,
yeah.
and that it's just like, excuse me, like if I don't want to have children, hopefully I've talked about that with my husband, and like I should be able to say I don't want children, take these things out of me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's another very interesting topic as well. Is just, how much, like when you go into a relationship, how much information do you quote, quote, like owe your partner? Like how much say should they reasonably have, or, that sort of thing for like long-term committed relationships. Like what does that look like?
Yeah. And I mean, it's another kind of like touchy topic of like a couple got pregnant and the woman was like, I really don't want this baby, but the guy was like, I really want this baby. It's like he did help create it, and like, but also he's not the one that has to carry it. And there's a huge difference between you could always put the baby up for adoption, and or like give him the baby if he wants it that fucking bad. But the amount of damage and just shit that happens to your body when you carry a child, it's like, should it be okay for you to force my body to like go through those changes? Like,
right. And I guess too, like we have to kind of, since you used the word force, I had to nitpick as well. But is like that makes a strong statement as far as like no one necessarily forced the person to like be pregnant. It's more of a disallowed to end pregnant.
I would
makes
say
sense.
that you are forcing them to remain to be pregnant at that point. Like, if I do not want what I deem a cretin inside of me.
Right, and I mean, like, to be specific, like, too, because abortion isn't, we're talking institutionalized abortion, right? So this isn't a, you must, like, no one prevents you from, goodness, what am I trying to say specifically here? So it's like, this is a service that someone is providing, that we're talking about making legal, and just as far as like the healthcare things go, like they've got certain things that they have to do, whether they agree with it or not, just being in the field, right? So like mandating legal abortion type thing. Like if you're a doctor, you have to provide this service, and obviously it's a touchy subject, so it's that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like no one is forcing you from quote quote throwing yourself down the stairs or whatever, or stopping you from doing that, but we're talking about like, should this be a medical right that people just kind of have access to, and doctors are forced to go through.
I feel like if you are
Um,
someone who doesn't want to perform abortions and your clinic performs abortions and it bothers you, like if and you don't want to do that, go work somewhere else.
work somewhere else. See, because that's another like pretty major like life change, right? That uh, career is very
I would
uh,
also lean toward. I'm like, cause this is kind of like grandfather clausy kind of thing, but like, if I worked at this clinic, 1 second. Oh God, I'm glad I'm wearing boots. Oh, okay. Eh. Oh, okay. Let's go back to my little hidey hole. Anyways, what was I saying for that traumatic event? Yes.
grandfather clause.
So if I work at a clinic, I work somewhere, and they didn't allow abortions before, and then they do allow abortions later, I feel like I should be able to say, like, I don't want to perform abortions, and I shouldn't have to perform abortions, even though that clinic provides that service. Because there's going to be people that'll work there that are fine to do it. Um, but I mean, but like if you worked there, you shouldn't have to change jobs because they've like changed their policy because they've like added this new service, if you want to call it a service. Um,
Right.
and so I mean, I know that's like kind of off topic, but yeah, if you've worked there for so many years, I don't think you should have to be like. I think you could at that point like say I just don't want to do that, but like you also can't prevent the clinic from doing it. You know, it's like
Right.
you aren't actively doing it, but the clinic's gonna do it. And if it really bothers you, then at that point you do need to go find somewhere else to work. Like if it bothers you that you work at a place that does that, then that's the point that it's problematic.
Exactly. Yeah. Like if you find moral issue with abortions being performed in your just general vicinity, whatever the case may be with that, then you probably should find somewhere else to
Yeah, because I mean, at that
to
point,
work.
it's like a kind of conflict for you. Like, if it bothers you that much, then you shouldn't have to.
Yeah, don't subject yourself to something like
But
that.
I mean, kind of like I
Uh,
guess going off on that like whole thing is I still do think it should be like a choice of kind of like you choose to not have an abortion. Like if you had an accidental pregnancy and then you're like, but I'm gonna keep it, then that's you making that active choice. But like going through an unwanted pregnancy because you have to, I just don't think that's good for any party involved, like including the child.
yeah, for
Like,
sure.
and yeah, there's you can adopt, like give them up for like foster care, or put them up for adoption. Jesus Christ.
Right. And I guess that kind of circles it back to the main like point of the conversation though too is that it's not whether abortion necessarily is right or wrong, right? It's whether or not it should be considered the same thing as like topic wise as the death penalty. So
Yes.
so uh, getting back around to like that point of things, because I think we agree to the extent, and stop me if I'm wrong.
Got to get a music disc.
That,
Hell yeah, bitch.
oh yeah,
I
are you?
got a skeleton to kill a creeper.
Nice. Vengeance.
Yeah, fuck you.
Mad disrespect.
Ooh, and emeralds. Oh God, what are you? I just am in a bad way. Ugh. All right.
So yeah, you see the so like the I think we agree that you're in both cases ending a human life for mixed reasons, but the reason is not necessarily because you have to, like, or necessarily even that you need to.
It's a
but
want to.
It's definitely a want
Yeah.
to, and we have to acknowledge.
It's like I don't
believe,
want to have this child, or I don't want this murderer existing in the same plane of existence as me.
Right, yeah, and it's not something in either case that necessarily has to be done for any particular, like you could say like the medical reasons, right? But like the electory, to say that you want electory abortions to be legal as a society is too. I mean, we have to agree, I think, that you're ending a
I don't have to
person's
do
life.
shit.
You don't have to, yeah, but I think it would be, as a society, like, I think we need to come to a consensus of not dehumanizing
Mhm.
people, and because that gets you into a whole, without naming anybody Nazis, that
Jesus Christ.
that it gets into a very dangerous domain of justifying certain things based on dehumanization, and that seems like a bad path to go down.
Mhm.
Um, so like to that extent, I think we should all agree that in either
Yeah,
case.
and I mean, I think there's a lot of consideration that does go into both, and some people do just like, well, okay, I cannot confirm this. It is an assumption based on a TV show, so clearly an assumption. But there was like one episode of Sex Education. It's on Netflix. You should watch it. Um,
We are not sponsored.
um, but there was like a girl or a woman who like very very frequently got pregnant, very frequently went to abortion clinics, and I mean, she was like known there, and like had very frequent abortions, and it didn't bother her at all.
Right.
But it's like I don't even think I don't believe that if it was like that accessible that people would do that. You know. I don't know if that's the concern. It's just kind of like, well, you're just gonna go get pregnant willy nilly just because you can end the like. I feel like there's most people like it's not an easy decision. It's not something that they're just kind of like, well, it's a typical Tuesday. Let me swing by the
Yeah,
abortion clinic.
and it shouldn't necessarily be taken
Mm-hmm.
lightly, like not to say that you should feel bad about doing it, or guilty about doing it, but it's not something that should be taken
Yeah.
lightly.
And I mean,
I
like
think,
maybe at that point, if that does happen to you, like maybe there's a few extra precautions to try to take in place. I don't think like you need to like be abstinent and not have sex or anything like that. But it's like if at
right.
that point then you like truly realize that you're not
'Cause
ready. Um,
I don't think anyone comes into the sex place with the intent of like, man, I really just want to get an abortion,
mhm.
and they get pregnant with the intent
Yeah. And I mean,
of,
and accidental pregnancies do happen, and again, it's pretty hard to get pregnant. Well, some people it is very fucking easy. But for some people it is just very easy, and for other people, and I feel like pretty average, it is like a little bit more complex to actually get pregnant. Um,
it's pretty commonly
yeah, and
difficult.
so it's like if that happens to you like once, then and it was an accident, and you're already if you were taking like protection and stuff like that, I'm like, I don't know how. Oh God, I hate how often that's gonna happen to you like on an accident, so it's like if it did happen to you once and it's just something you're not ready for, and I already tried like all the other like protection options and shit, you shouldn't like it's clearly something you tried to prevent.
Ooh, right. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying there, and because some people are just
They
like
just really get unlucky
really,
with that.
I was gonna say fertile, like really fertile,
Dangerously fertile.
dangerously fertile, and yeah. So I mean that's a thing. Like some people are more predisposed to becoming pregnant, I suppose, and it goes for like the men side of things too. Like some men, there's varying
Hmm.
potencies for men and that sort of thing as well. So a lot of factors go
Hmm.
into that whole thing. But I see what you're saying there with that, and like accidents
Yeah.
happen, and the best, as much as I'm sure everyone is tired of hearing this, but the best way to not get pregnant is to not have sex. Like,
Boo.
so I'm just saying.
Boo.
I'm just saying. And it's
All
not
right,
about saying
noted.
like,
We're
oh,
not ready to have a kid, so uh, as of this day, no more booty.
I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you, internet. You just remember me. Remember
Man
me.
dies of blue balls. I'm just kidding.
The it's for the good of the people, but you know, like that's a thing to consider though. And if you are a person that repeatedly finds yourself in the position of like being consistently pregnant, even though you're trying not to get pregnant, you know, maybe abstinence for non-religious reasons is a good thing to
Boo.
look into.
Some
Just
people
saying,
really
it's an
like
option.
sex.
Look, no shame or anything. Like that's
And
not the point of
I
that at
feel
all.
like I would say that birth control does a pretty good job if you can use it consistently.
Oh yeah, but we're talking about people like that just have really bad luck or good luck depending on your worldview of just ending up pregnant a lot and unintentionally, you know. So like in that case, if that's your situation and you feel like the moral dilemma of like if you don't feel anything about like the abortion at all, then you do you know, baby boo, like do whatever you
Yeah,
want.
I definitely would still lean toward it being very much like that's up to you. Like we
Well, even abstinence though is a
yeah
choice. Like I'm not saying forced abstinence,
yeah.
but maybe something to consider. Like is if you find yourself in that position and you don't want to be in that position, you know, that's
I don't know what the like
non-religious people
statistics of
practice.
people that like get like that frequently pregnant though, and you know.
Oh yeah, I doubt that it's a common thing at all,
Yeah.
honestly. Um, but once again, we're getting off
Oh yeah,
track.
sorry.
The
Boo! How about the sex you
point.
want? Just be safe.
Just be safe about it. Yeah.
Birth control works. Can confirm.
Well, part of practicing safe sex is knowing when not to have sex.
I mean, that's very true.
So, just saying. The yeah. So I mean, but at the end of the day, coming back to like the agreement statement, I think we can settle with the same base agreements though, that like death penalty is the allowed killing of a human, and abortion is the allowed killing of a human, and neither case comes from a need, like
Yeah,
an
it's
absolute
a little bit like if
need.
you allow one, you should allow the other because they do both end in like a life being ended. And so
Yeah, and
if you're very adamantly against one but very for the other, it's like maybe you need to take a step back.
understand your morals and that sort of thing. Like if you have a position and you feel one kind of way, it's okay to have like emotions about certain things, but you should be prepared to talk about you know what your stance is and why, you know, like it just as a person, like is a good thing to know for yourself. Like question your own values is a good thing to do. But yeah, and one last thing here as well before we wrap it up is that I want to
Wrap
make
it
sure
up.
that that we draw a difference between like, and this may be something we talk about later as well, but if you know you're under threat of siege, like someone is trying to hurt you, then that person gets killed, that's different from like death penalty, even because there is
Like I mean, there's
a
self-defense.
immediate
Like
need. Yeah, and I think just drawing the difference that some human killing, it does not fall in the same category that I'm saying that death penalty and abortion do. Like self-defense killing, I would say, is a different thing.
right.
Like, there is such a time when ending of human life is a necessary thing.
Ooh.
Did you have any other things you wanted to say there?
I don't think so. Other than have all the sex you want, but just be safe about it. That's my 2 cents.
Have your sex.
Fuck
Be
abstinence.
safe.
I'm just kidding.
Texas, get your shit together.
Please, Texas.
Figure it out.
Like, yeah, that whole thing. I definitely just feel like people are. Oh, excuse Thank you. Um, I don't know, just kind of like stripping people. This is purely on the abortion thing of their right to make the choices that they need to is kind of bullshit, and fuck those people that do that. So
Yeah, I mean, autonomy is important. That's just end all. Like that's you have to have, control of your body.
but yeah,
That's the truth.
I think that was a little super all over the place. Didn't stay on topic at all. I died once, but
Give us your thoughts and opinions, and if there's anything that you want us to talk about next, or if there were things that came up that we didn't go into as deep as you would have
or that
liked,
we were
then-
just wrong on, definitely.
oh
Because
yeah,
I'm sure
100%.
some of like just our knowledge is not accurate. I usually try to fact check people if they say something that I don't really agree with or think sounds right, but so fact check
and
us.
at the end of the day, a lot of this was our
Oh, yeah.
opinions. So definitely, if you have your own
Just two
opinion,
ignorant
then
sluts.
right. So yeah. But if you finished and watched to the
Gross.
end
If
here,
you
then-
finished, make sure to flush it out. That's not how
Flush it
that
out.
works. That is not correct information on how to prevent pregnancy. If once it's in there, it's gonna happen if it's gonna happen. So flushing it out's not gonna do anything. Don't let it get in there in the first place unless there's something in there preventing it, like a different type of birth control. Anyway.
Oh, wonderful. That's a good
Yeah.
note. Okay, thanks for coming to Controversial Co-op. I'm Ninjealous.
I'm Emytha.
Bye.